Hello everyone, and welcome back to GloNet. We're still with Istanbul, and so I'm delighted to hand it over for one more talk from Istanbul before we tune in to Sao Paulo, which is our next city up. So Istanbul, are you there? Can you hear me? Over to you.
Yes, we can hear you. This feels a bit like the Eurovision Song Contest, doesn't it? Well, welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a good lunch. We just want to say, actually, in the good tradition of all things Eurovision, your set does look fantastic. It's amazing, and we've had a really enjoyable day taking part in the debate so far, and we look forward to the rest of the afternoon. Talking of which, coming up is Nilufer Kozikoglu. Got it right. Nilufer is an architect. She runs an organization called TUSPA NK. She's also a teacher in parametric design at Istanbul Technical University. TUSPA, her practice, which she founded, researches and practices in the realm of material spatial pattern, and architecture. And I've been looking at her websites in the last few days, and the designs that Nilufer and her team come up with are absolutely fantastic, really inventive ways of looking at space. So we're really looking forward to this talk, and without further ado, I will hand you over to Nilufer. Thanks very much.
Hello. I am delighted to be part of this organization. It's due to an appetite that I have about the network organizations that you might recognize in a city's form. Today I'm going to try to hint at growth forms that might be relevant in Istanbul, and the sort of trajectories or reflections you might be able to find, reflective axes and plateaus you might be able to find in Istanbul. I'll start off with something that is just a random photographs that we took from the bus routes in Istanbul to give you an idea of the city. And I'm going to excuse myself, but I'm going to read what I have prepared for this 20-minute short period. Growth forms in different organisms can be described in various operative adjectives, trajectories, and geometries: inwards, outwards, upwards, linear, peripheric, exponential, etc. An organism's growth pattern may formally be evolutionary, that each stage has resemblances to a consecutive stage, or perhaps might be hard to recognize as mutational. A shrinkage in a city, on the other hand, would hardly mean a snap back. The city of Istanbul, as its various parameters have increased in time, have been growing. For the sake of a comparison, let's take 1973 as a reference. We can denote that there are more people, more cars, more roads, certainly more buildings. In other variables, though, it is possible to talk about shrinkage: less gardens, less mixed neighborhoods, less occasion of the walk to the work. Some of the other variables may be said to have the attribute of fluctuation, things that are always inherent but differing in value in time. The cosmopolitan quality, activities in and around the sea, and such. The city in growth, in a set instance, may be said to either replicate or reproduce its own material in the vicinity, or transform into another pattern or grain parametrically different in the expansion. The critical thresholds that differentiate the facets from a pre-described pattern to a different one is interesting in time. Let's say that the urban pattern that is apparent in Ümraniye, which is a 20-year-old neighborhood, is not a replication of the existing grain as a sample, but it is the product of a migrative urban force rather than a reproduct of the city material itself. Is it possible to talk about a new formation, perhaps a fringe situation in kind, but not an evolution? Rather than a growth, optimistically, it is a pre-stage of a merge, an incorporation. To know a city, one might look at the citizens, the transactions. In 2006, I had the desire to see what the city actually looked like. In a practical point of view, urban front is the street facade. In rather a wry manner, keeping the focus on the vintage of the roads, my friend took these photos from exact routes of the municipal bus routes in the 32 districts of the time. Those are the images you are seeing. Localities that are a continuation in kind, say building type, frequencies of certain institutions, certain brands, geometries, etc., or that are disparate, one might possibly differentiate the organs of a city as a body or bodies and start to talk about an Istanbulness. In order to understand the cooperation or the distinctive relations between these organs, we looked at certain symptomatic figures, which is number of banks, number of certain institutions, which you can see here. In the year 2006, we were cooperated by an institute called Infotech, who was gathering information about Istanbul, plus some municipal values, which we try to understand how we can merge together to come up with certain understanding of the city. As a very short snapshot of what we did, we took instead of a direct analogy, we took clusters of these values to understand resemblances between these districts, trying to understand which district behaves similar to another one. So we looked at a couple of values together to understand the way the district behaves in terms of education, for example, or the way it behaves in terms of goods that are sold or in terms of financial transactions. So the one that has 20 movie theaters and 60 schools and 4 religious institutions would be like another one that had similar ratios but not exactly the same quantities. So here you start to see these are the districts in Istanbul that we took into, I mean, all the districts of Istanbul actually. And here you see the way a district resembles another one. So the one that is red, yellow and highlighted, these districts resemble one another in terms of educational institutions. Here you start to see resemblances in terms of production. And so forth. The way these resemblances might be traveling around is that we thought the roads might become the fault line for urban tissue formation and or spread. We observed from the resemblance relations that there are also symmetries around certain axes. Here what you are seeing is bus routes that are connecting different districts, all of the 32 districts of the time, regarding the ones that are leaving and the ones that are arriving. So we made a grouping of these districts and try to understand, sorry, the images are shuffled, try to understand which ones resemble one another in terms of arrival and in terms of departure. So this was giving us an idea about which district was behaving totally unique to another one. In a way, we could be starting to talk about which district is feeding into another one as such. Of course, the roadmap, which is a generic view of a roadmap, would be like this. But when you start to understand which area is pumping which one, this is drawn exactly as the number of bus routes are taking place in the city. You start to see a different view of how the city is actually behaving. In a narrative that discusses the oneness of the peninsula, the old peninsula in time, that has mutated into a duplication that Pera is a reflection of Tahtakale by the Golden Horn. If such depictions are possible, we could say that Beşiktaş, Kadıköy, Bakırköy, which are the main 3 districts in Istanbul, form a resemblance triangle that make a plateau for reflexiveness in cultural and educational facets. The generative trajectories I am focusing on is reflection myself, but it is possible to find folds, revolutions, seeding in other examples. These are the confirmations of certain patterns into a microclimatic condition. I think it is also important to suggest the vicissitude that does not support a totality in exact symmetry or an exactitude of any formal valor as the forms unfold. Several axes permute and the city is then a multiplicity and the complexity we encounter. However, it is possible to talk about a fractal quality. So I'm going to leave at that, and I hope there are some questions.
Hey.
And now we're ready to start our question period. If anyone would like to approach the microphone here in Manchester, we have one question. Please go ahead.
I'd like to ask you about that concept of arrivals and departures you mentioned. Could you explain a little bit more about it? It seemed to be one of the attributes for creating your diagrams for the different districts, arrivals and departures. Why would it be different? And how is it different?
If I understood the question correct, why the departures and arrivals are different than one another, that is the question?
Yes. What is the concept of using those terms and how do you manipulate it?
We try to understand in terms of pumping into the city the values, the amounts, and taking in from the peripheries or going to the peripheries. That's sort of an equation. When you look at how many buses during the day are taking off and how many buses during the day are actually arriving at that district, you can start to understand which district resembles another one in the way it behaves. I mean, this is just by looking at the numbers. Sorry.
Experiencing a couple of sound issues here. Are we all right now?
Yes, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Fantastic. Sorry, do you want to take up that point?
Yeah. Perhaps it's I'm trying to zoom. So the way the program behaves is it clusters and rechecks each cluster against one another. The program that was used was by Mr. Güvenç, the Bertin algorithms, that isolated one district and compared it to the rest and did this multiple times to each and tried to come up with sorry if I can find. Perhaps here you can see that these districts behave the same in terms of arrivals. So the number of buses that arrive there and their frequency is actually creating a sort of similar situation for these districts. But it is not the same for arrivals. Those are not the same group of resembling districts in terms of departures.
I understand that. I just wanted to ask you if it makes a difference looking at where do the arrivals come from, which are the all many different points. Did you look at that or did you just look at pure numerics? Because that would be another way maybe linking the different districts, knowing how many arrivals, but also breaking that down to where do they come from to arrive here and where do the other buses depart
Would you just mind? Sorry, would you mind repeating the question, please? We couldn't hear it that clearly.
I think I might be able to clarify this. I think there's a misunderstanding that's going on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're looking at departures and arrivals at a given hour of the day differentially, right? So departures from a neighborhood in the morning indicate that it's a residential neighborhood, and arrivals in the morning would indicate that it's a central commercial district or something like that. Are we understanding you correctly?
If we only looked at a certain time, that would be correct. It is exactly like resembling in terms of behavior, in terms of commute, would be exactly that. But what you're seeing here is all year long activity. So we're looking at whether it's daytime or evening time. The algorithm is checking whether the district is behaving the same.
Okay, does that answer the question sufficiently? Okay, all right. Adam, did you have a question? We might have a question here.
I think it's kind of been addressed.
It's kind of been addressed. Okay, so we're fine. Do you guys have any questions over in Istanbul? Over to you.
Yeah, I believe that we do. Let me just hand over the mic. And is it Nafiz again? Is it? You can't stop today. Okay, Nafiz, do you want me to hand this over to you?
My question is simply, what are the implications of this analysis for, say, urban planning, or on a smaller scale, architectural production?
Yeah. This is. Do you see? Yeah. For example, what you see on the screen at the moment is a project that we did, kind of like an analysis for a project that we did, taking into consideration the networks that you previously saw, trying to understand which parts of the city is attracting, in which categories, let's say, and trying to understand how the new peripheric zones might fit into this relationship scenario. So sort of a cluster of educational pool for these attractors is going to either enable that part of the district, a new neighborhood, for example, to fit in, to grow instead for itself, or to pump into that area for that pool, or for that attractiveness. So it's a bit of a scenario playing, trying to see how this network might enable another one to arrive, or how it is evolving in time, whether it is going to leave one off or have another tendency to attract another one. So trying to look at that relationships, which one is behaving like an educational pool to the other ones, and which one is behaving like a commutational pool or a residential pool.
I'd like to ask you if you got any results.
Do we have any more questions in Istanbul?
We have a question in Manchester.
Yeah, I'm really curious to find if you had any results that surprised you at all. Because otherwise, it doesn't seem like there's anything. You've done an awful lot of data collection, and all you're telling us is that some districts perform differently than others, and we know that already, right? We know that by looking at the map, and I think that unless something emerges from your data that doesn't map directly to population density or something else that we already know, the point of doing an analysis like that would be to turn up some kind of novelty or something that we haven't found out before, and I'd be really curious to find out what that would be in this case.
Sure. That's true. For another project that we did in a vicinity called Bakırköy, which is this one, which is behaving very differently in most of the other network situations, as well as this commutational perspective. We did a project there, and although you kind of like see how the space is behaving, this sort of analysis proved to us that it is a very good sample of Istanbul in its the cosmopolitan qualities, as well as mixed neighborhoods, as well as well-educated, middle-class zone, that the project we were doing is a psychiatric hospital, and we kind of like saw that it was a perfect plot to keep the hospital there and try to understand how we could continue to integrate, let's say, in that district. This is not shocking if you wanted to see if there was a shocking information, but it was reassuring, or kind of like giving you a perspective instead of the initial images that you are seeing. It's kind of like the Istanbul that you live in. Rather, these analyses give you a narrative that you make a pattern out of, let's say.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks. So we don't have any more questions in Manchester, I don't think. Do you have any more in Istanbul?
No, I've just canvassed opinion. We're good.
Excellent, great. Well, in that case, thank you very much, Nilufer, for your talk. Let's give her another round of applause, please.